Our tenant, the policeman. What more do you want to know about that pool? Yes, let's see if there's other questions.
The waves are beginning to die down. Look at those little bastards. Simmer down. Simmer down, back. You're back? Good. What can I help you with? Oh? A takeover? If they're taking it...
Like a cancer of the blood, metastasizing.
Then we're talking about a war. Evrart needs to let me into the harbor at once. We need to talk about this. They most certainly are not. Crenel has 1,000 men on their payroll. The next batch will be a platoon of 20 men and a gunship.
I've seen the Union's forces. They are better organized than these mercenaries. They also have the support of the people of FunMustBeAlways's. It will take more than Crenel to wipe them out. Wild Pines will need to send more and better equipped men. Make no mistake, ma'am. I am sure you have the money. The question is, how many years and how many lives are you willing to sacrifice?
What do you suggest I do? Everything affects the decision-making process,
Officer?
For once, I don't seem to know what the right thing to do is.
Like the previous leaders of the Union were assassinated. I suspect by Evrart and Edgar themselves. I admit there's some poetry in the idea, and like poetry, it's also useless. There would still be Edgar. They factored it in. What will I do? Did I ever tell you how they discovered this Isola? During our reality lowdown? It may be the only break we've ever caught as a species. The last one for 400 years. The nations who colonized this Isola called theirs Muindi, the world. It was all they knew, all they thought would be. That there would be something more was a gamble, akin to another world, or life after death. The Pale was thought to be impregnable, perpetual. Irene la Navigateur, the Queen of Suren, sent 8 expeditions, one after the other, into the mass at the edge of the world. 5 of the crews did not return. 2 did, but had lost their minds.
Each of those expeditions would have been led by an admiral. Sounds like a purge. Like she was purging her political rivals.
There was no precedent for such an undertaking. People thought she was punishing the admirals, or had gone mad, or both. Until after years of trial and error, and the development of a strict psychological regime imitating the creation process of poetry.
Called Volta do Mar, or Return from the Sea.
The 8th expedition returned sane and intact. They told of a new continent of matter. They told the Queen and her counselor, Dolores Day, that the Pale had begun to condense, day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, slowly raining down until it formed a vast ocean. The phenomenon has never again been encountered. For a time, the crew thought they were experiencing a hallucination. The mass hand proclaimed, "Lancialinde, Lancialinde," the signal to wake up. But they could not. They were sane and conscious, as islands began to appear on the horizon. There are 78,000 uninhabited islands in the Insulindian archipelago, officer. The freckled face of God.
You've thought it a million times.
A total shift in human comprehension of reality. On the second day, a great skua was shot down above the flagship Lizargique. The bird was preserved and brought back, along with pollen. 4 years later, the Queen's counselor was proclaimed Her Innocence Dolores Day, the elected world spirit. The age of humanism, internationalism, and parliamentary rule followed. We were high. On Caillou, the Pebble, the largest of the fertile, uninhabited islands of the northeast Insulindian archipelago. 4 centuries and 2 revolutions later, the first living, autonomous organism, proof of reality. It's the symbol of Insulinde, detective, the coat of arms of the suzerain and the wings on the crest of the commune. In your defense, it is a nasty creature who plucks food from the throats of lesser birds. Yet much like Revachol, it is also magnificent and rare. Imagine the suzerain of seagulls. The nations of Mundi proceeded to discover 5 more Isolae, or they discovered us, all in the rush of the great inter-Islary reconnection. But these others weren't uninhabited. We had to kill people there, wipe out indigenous populations, gunboat economies, or they came to do the same for us, or had done to each other. But here, there was no one but the skua, the Liliat Sea, and the Blood Beach, and the River Esperance. It was the new world. The Mondials used it to amass the greatest concentration of wealth mankind has ever seen. Revachol, the suzerain, revolution, poverty, and the mercurial rise of capitalism. It is. Soon it will be spring and everything will blossom.
The gangs will run wild, jacking motor carriages, ferrying amphetamines through Coal City. Spring is tough in Revachol.
I will surrender Terminal B to the Union.
She puts her hand in the rain. She's silent for a second.
We will see.
Ma'am, this may well unravel property law this side of the river. If that occurs, we may never see the end of this kind of confrontation. The next time there will be 2 strikes, then 4, then 100.
What happens will happen. The age of capital has only begun. I will talk to my employers in person. We will amputate and cauterize Martinez. If you handle the situation on the ground. Yes, Mr. Clare has a 2-month head start. I can't let it grow any bigger. And I've exhausted all my
There are no employers. She's a member of the board. Probably a partner.
You are the citizens' militia. There are no superiors.
That's right, Detective. And next time, you should confer with them before you go setting events in motion.
Despite his words, he's not really sure whether to be annoyed with you or not. Events are already in motion. Whether your actions accelerated or momentarily retarded their progress, even the lieutenant cannot really say.
Here I am. I am the face, and I'm here to answer. Rejoice, Leighton. Keep the peace, and I will keep my end of the bargain.
How far along is Crenell's investigation?
The confrontation is imminent. They have followed in your footsteps. As your investigation reaches a climax, so does theirs. Protect their targets. Violence may be unavoidable, but we can limit the casualties. Soon. I do not know precisely. They have cut off all communication, you see. They know I've been feeding you information. One last thing, Lieutenant Dubois. I've given the matter much thought and come to this conclusion. You're not an amnesiac. You're insane. I know, because I, too, am insane. I just hide my illness better. And I'm rich. No, Detective. No one's as insane as you.
Don't worry, Madame. I am very sane.
I'm overexposed, baby. My travels take me through the Pale dozens of times a year. I've got the longing. And I've got it bad.
She would die to return to it. The Pale. The past. Anything one can return to.
The same strict psychological regimen the 8th Admiral developed when he crossed the Pale and discovered this Isola. The Volta do Mar. It's used by inter-Easlary travelers and other troubled souls, even to this day.
You could use a little of it yourself.
Watch out for yourselves. They will strike soon.
The lieutenant watches her boat grow smaller, with worry in his eyes. He does not know if it was the right thing to do, but he doesn't say. You wonder what Everard has to say about this.
The waves are beginning to die down. Look at those little bastards. Simmer down. Simmer down. Oh? Who? Well, how can I assist you then?
A scattering of bullet holes is spread across the cracked wall, reaching from one corner to the other.
Correct. The density of the bullet holes is unusual. Even in a general, average bullet hole. Meaning, this is a lot of bullet holes. Looks like fully automatic rifle fire. Something you don't see these days. The manufacturing and sale of automatic rifles was curtailed after the revolution. The destructive power.
Fairweather T500. Remember that weakness you were looking for in the ceramic armor? Like, maybe it can only stop small, fast projectiles, but a large, slow-moving pry bar would shatter it? Or, if I run an electrical current through it, maybe it will melt. Or, personal favorite, frequency something something radio weapon? None of that would work. You need to shoot the part of the enemy that doesn't have Fairweather T500 on it, because the armor itself is invulnerable. Good news is, so are the armor pieces on you. scattering of bullet holes is spread across the cracked wall, reaching from one corner to the other. A row of ghostly shades stand facing the wall. There are many of them, a dozen at least, their heads lowered and eyes blindfolded. It's quiet. No sound, no movement. 10 meters away, other shades are lined up in an orderly manner, automatic rifles primed. A gust of wind blows by. The coats of the firing squad flap slowly in the breeze. A single person stands on the side. Droplets of rain fall on the wooden planks, the surrounding sand dunes. The clouds block out any rays of light. A long time has passed since the moment of this fusillading. Rain and brine have since washed all the blood away. Not a trace remains. The abundance of bullet holes leads to two options. Either an inordinate amount of executions were performed here, or they did not use a conscience round, where only one soldier has the loaded rifle. Looks like this was a mass execution with everyone fully armed. A host of men, probably in everyday clothes, ragged from the conflict and covered in dust. They were not sitting, a common practice for executions in some nations, as demonstrated by the height level of the bullet holes. They stand, facing the wall. It's impossible to discern any details about their personality or background. Ordinary people, familiar, each and every one of them. Leeches, fleas, and thieves, all the freeloader scum living off the hard work of others. Such is your belief. Seven men in combat uniforms and dark coats, holding automatic rifles aimed at the people. Soldiers from some side, but from which one? The commandant, the one who gives the order. Machine gun fire crackling through the air, the lights of the muzzle flashes dancing on his face.
I don't know. I don't know who died here, lined up beside that horrible wall. It could have been any of the parties involved in the revolution. Perhaps the ones executed here were the loyalist conservatives, killed by the communists at the start of the Civil War. Or it could have been the communists, put to death during the last stretch of the conflict by the It could even have been the employees of the failed R&D center down the coast, as their building was taken over by the revolutionaries. Yeah, it's very unlikely the coalition forces were the ones who died here. They were always the last ones against the wall. To be honest, if a coalition member was anyone in this situation, it was the commandant, the superior giving the orders.
A cold sea wind blows away the figures. A row of ghostly shades facing a crumbling wall, with another 7 shades standing 10 meters. A cold sea wind blows away. metal and plastic contraption bobs up and down amidst the trembling reeds. At first, it just looks like
That, over there, must be the boy Klaas you told us about. The one she hid her passport in. We should take a look.
Ooh, hidden things, secrets. You lift the boy out of the water without much effort. It's not tied to anything. The cords dangling from the bottom appear to have been cut. The number 11 has been written on the yellow plastic. It hasn't been in the water for very long, but it's already discolored and slimy with silt. A latch holds it close, but only just barely. The brittle metal of the latch.
Simple construction. Very unsafe.
There's something in there, splashing around. It smells like you would expect it to smell. A concentrated version of the coast. Salt, industrial slop and decay. A shot glass's worth of seawater pours out. Some algae, and nothing else.
Well, damn. We still got here too late. There's nothing of use here anymore. I have no idea. Or think we do. This is a small loose end, either way. Not important, I hope. Could be. We should keep an eye out.
You could ask the miss what she thinks. Later, if you have the time. Though you doubt she'll tell you much at this.
Here we go. Nice and easy.
There's a cylinder on the ground in which the man is arranging some netting.
Who's there?
Is that the police? Why are the police here?
Don't worry, Gary. I'll handle it. To what do I owe the pleasure?
That's sarcasm. He takes no pleasure from your appearance.
Oh no, it's all right. I'm just busy. What's this about? Hey, of course. Thank you for passing along the message. That damn water lock is broken, and we can't go all the way around the A81.
The 881 is a raised motorway that separates Martinez from Jamrock. The labyrinth of streets underneath it makes it difficult to pass. Not like walking over a nice water lock.
Oh, good. We should really be getting back. Gary could use a hot shower and a warm bed.
Did he say we can go back?
Yes, Gary! We can go soon! If you see Lena, tell her I won't be long.
Sir, your wife is waiting for you.
I just have to do one more round. See if the phasmid has taken the bait. Then we're going. Well, first of all, it's damn difficult to find, which is why we've been knee-deep in the reeds laying traps for it. Good question. Being a phasmid of the order Phantasmodea, a ghost insect, it disguises itself as plant matter. In this case, the reeds. Awful lot of reeds around, aren't there? And I suspect it may have also developed other specialised techniques to protect itself from predators, or scientists, in our present case. It's my hypothesis that it has evolved certain electrochemical defences that allow it to interfere with animal perception, impeding pattern recognition, confusing the visual cortex. But I cannot describe how these defences work, much less how they evolve, without studying a live specimen.
A ghost insect, he said? These people are looking for a ghost.
No, that is precisely what we're not. We are zoological specialists, looking for an extant species of phasmid. I'm expecting it to be quite giant. One known species of phasmid, called the Megaphasmodeozoensis, is about the size of a grown man's forearm. So,
Seems puny, to be honest.
Typical rookie assumption. Insects are much more sophisticated creatures than those unversed in zoology give them credit for. Even simply catching a glimpse of the Insulindian phasmid would be the apex of my, of any, cryptozoologist's career. But
Would be glory itself.
very little, I'm sorry to say. Not yet. That's what makes it a cryptid.
Just out of curiosity, if there's no proof of its existence, how do you know it's real?
I know it's real.
It's clear that his obsession with the phasmid is driven by something more than the pure pursuit of science.
By which I mean, I've heard enough first-hand accounts to believe quite firmly that the Insulindian phasmid is more than mere superstition. There was a credible sighting here recently. A pair of teenagers described a creature that matched the Insulindian phasmid to an uncanny degree, despite not knowing what it was themselves. It's the first credible sighting in several decades. Admittedly, it's an unusual location for this species, but with all the sewage runoff upstream, it probably doesn't matter much anymore. I have to resist the thought. Such an extraordinary creature is doubtlessly highly resilient. After all, it's generally thought to be capable of parthenogenesis.
He means asexual reproduction. The females of the species don't need to mate to produce viable eggs. This makes it easier for a species with a small population to survive.
Nature does not concern herself with ethical propositions. As a scientist, my interest is strictly dispassionate. Well, they may not look impressive, but Lena designed them quite cleverly, so I'm sure they'll do the trick. Yes. Simple. Attracted by the locusts, the phasmid crawls down the funnel and, having eaten its fill, can't get back out. At least, that's the intention. The net isn't a perfect solution, but we didn't want to use anything that might damage the specimen's delicate exoskeleton. Locusts. Nearly all known phasmids are herbivores, of course. But we've hypothesized that the Insulindian phasmid might occasionally prey on other insects.
Inside the traps, a number of locusts crawl and tumble over one another in a tiny, chittering swarm. A meat-eating stick insect? Does it pretend to be the reeds as part of its ambush behavior? This seems unlikely.
Thank you for your opinion. We have also included plant material in the traps to satiate your skepticism. They'll work, I assure you. The predatory hypothesis, using locusts as bait, accounts for the failure of previous efforts by other teams, which use plants. We have given this some thought. Yes. What? I'm afraid not, officer. I've been busy digging around in the reeds for days, looking for signs of insect activity.
The lieutenant takes a short note in his notebook, then gestures for you to proceed.
And I'm eager to return to her, I assure you. But I can't leave before we've... My wife understands that.
Come on, Morale.
And leave the traps? Absolutely.
Come on. She wants us back. I'm soaked up to my nuts over here. We'll both catch reed crabs if we don't dry out soon.
I'm doing this for science, and so is she. Of course it's important to her. She's seen it. Yes, that's how we first came to know one another, in fact. But that's her story to tell, not mine. Suffice to say, it's long been our dream to find proof of the Insulindian phasmid together. I can't abandon course now. No. The traps need to be monitored on a regular schedule. What would we do if the phasmid were to starve while we were sipping tea at the hostel?
He's dead set on this.
I didn't expect you to take such an interest in our work here, officer. Yes, indeed. Both require a great deal of research, attention to detail, and, above all, persistence. There are 4 in total. One is to the south, on this little peninsula, by the boathouses there. It's very near. Another we set in Land's End, to the northeast. It's behind a small sand dune there, on your way to the old radio tower, after the church. The third is set near the canal, where you crossed, by a concrete slab. A big thicket of reeds going up the slope, and among them... You should check at least one of those before returning to this one, since I just said it. This one's more of a technicality, but still, better safe and stupid than sorry.
That seemed like a lot. Do we really have time for this extracurricular venture? Is it?
If you think it's important, you have been right before.
Bring it to me at once. Just make sure the trap...
He's not comfortable with the possibility that you'll claim the find, but he's lying about this even to himself.
That's highly unlikely, officer. But in the event you do, I'll spray you with a pheromone mixture I developed. It's made of musk and research chemicals. The pheromone should attract the insect to you, or at least prevent it from bolting at the sight of you. It's quite potent. Will last you about a week. Wise choice.
I hope you're not buying this. It dispenses it without letting you touch the canister, so it would be precious like holy water.
It is precious. A single dose cost me 50 real to develop. Not that I expect you to understand self-financing one's own research.
Right, which means you two can pack up and go back.
Finally!
Thank you for your help. Gary and I will start breaking down camp. If you have any more questions, now's the time to ask.
If it's more cryptid-related business you want to discuss, you'll have time for that later too. But what if the information is vital? On the hunt.
I've just always liked animals and puzzles. Searching for cryptids is a bit of both. It's not child's play. just because I have to traipse through the mud every so often. Real. I know you think one is a respectable profession, while the other is superstition. Everyone does. My methods do not differ from other scientists. I simply draw upon a... No, as I said, I have yet to catch a cryptid. Although I have come close. Everything from forgotten regional lore to newspaper accounts, like the one that brought us here.
He's interested in things that people believe that scientists don't.
Most establishment scientists only care about reputation and remuneration, not real research. And no, very few of the list of cryptids kept by the Cryptozoological Society of Chemnee, which is 4,082 items long. About 2,000 have been confirmed as hoaxes. 2 are categorized as confirmed discoveries. The rest are in differing stages of discovery. Yes, the Chateau Quan forest pygmy, who turned out to be an extinct species of primate, and a cave salamander from Yugograd, who is, honestly, quite a... We cryptozoologists are brutally honest with ourselves. More so even than the public. With cryptids, most cryptids are hoaxes or they are never found. That does not... Indeed. If our expedition is successful, every paper in the world will report on it. From Revachol to Dushantu. It will be a zoological miracle.
He has clearly done his math on this. There is no surprising him or swaying his opinion.
Yes? All right. What cryptids precisely? I usually discuss it.
We would have to discuss. He wants to say, but decides against it, since you've offered to help. You need to ask him about specific cryptids. Cryptids you've heard about from Lena, or his friend Gary. He won't just talk.
A willow person. It's a long story.
Willow people? Not at all.
They're not people, really. Some argue they aren't really animals, as they seem to have evolved directly from trees. They're very, very thin, almost flat in fact, and can camouflage themselves easily, wrapping themselves around trees and blending in with the tree bark. In that way, they're not too dissimilar from the phasmid we're looking for here. You probably have. Gary and I painted an entire grove's worth of trees in slow-drying paint. It was a bright lavender colour. I was hoping one of the willow people would get paint on it and not be able to camouflage itself. After waiting in hiding for hours, I saw a figure slip from one of the trees, a lavender shadow. I chased it with a net. Not very elegant. You can't be elegant in the field. And, well...
A lavender shadow.
I know you think we were snacking on funny mushrooms. It's easier to mock someone than to admit... Furthermore, I'm not saying it was a confirmed sighting. I'm painfully aware of what goes into verifying such things. There is a serious possibility that I saw a squirrel or a trick of the light. I am my own harshest critic.
He makes it a real point here to sound falsifiable.
Confirmed. It's 100% verified and meets all the standards of an authentic cryptid sighting. I see you've been talking about cryptids with Lena. The kind green. We travelled to South Safra to look for it once. Gary and I got stuck in a rainstorm though, and had to spend most of our time there in a little village. The search was fabulously unsuccessful, but the people were very nice. I'm glad they didn't understand what Gary was saying about them.
What? South Safra? They're just on a different rung of the ladder, Morel. I had no problem with them.
Really? You kept complaining about how dirty everything is. We digress.
They're a nascent culture. I just didn't feel comfortable. And let's change the topic, okay? Talk about your critters, or whatever.
Formerly the most dangerous, yes. But do you know the most dangerous living cryptid? The most dangerous cryptid is a carnivorous ruminant, known colloquially as the dread moose. Yes, the dread moose subsists entirely on flesh. It has even been known to dig up fresh graves in search of sustenance. Human remains have been found deep in the forest, torn apart, then trampled into the mulch by large hooves. Infer from that what you will. Just like an ordinary Arden moose. You can't. That's what makes it so dreadful and hard to identify.
A moose that looks like any other moose. What's going on here? He's kidding, right?
The bodies found in the forest are just one piece of physical evidence. There's more. The recent surge in the moose population has hidden carnivores. The dread moose are effectively removing competition for both themselves and their evolutionary cousins. Moose are already being hunted for sport. Can you imagine what would happen if they came to be viewed as predators? The carnivorous moose are a very young species, the result of a genetic mutation. It makes sense that such a majestic animal with natural weapons, antlers, would come to rule the forest. The only strange thing is that it took so long. One slaughterhouse at the outskirts of the woods in Vasa reported that its staff kept seeing moose in the distance. The moose would just stare at the building, as though they were waiting for something, its eyes bloodshot and full of cruelty. And that's not all. Some of the slaughterhouse apprentices went hiking by a nearby creek and saw a moose nibbling on an unidentified carcass.
This isn't something unique. Various species of deer have been known to scavenge when plant food is scarce.
Anyway, there is more than enough evidence to justify a thorough search for the dread moose. Let's close the subject.
Here is a man who has had more than its fair share of heated arguments, and would, surprising as it may seem, prefer not to have any more.
That's impressive, I guess. But have you seen it with your own eyes? I haven't had a chance to travel to Coco North. No. And I likely never will. The Samaskill desert region has been embroiled in a small civil war for the last 8 years. I fear this mindless barbarism may have wiped out the elusive creature entirely. Sightings of towering luminosities have grown rare recently, while they once...
Yes, sightings of mirages are constant. A mirage is a constant phenomenon that people have no time to report. When a war, it remains unclear what this has got to do with you seeing it, as he was inquiring before. He was just being defensive.
That's impressive, I guess. Remarkable. When? That's what I thought. You haven't actually seen it, and I can't imagine how you could. I fear this...
Yes, sightings, it remains unclear what this has got to do with you seeing it, as he was inquiring before.
Oh, everyone knows about that one, thanks to Professor Mijanu being the talk of the town.
A bit of jealousy there. He'd want that glory, truth be told, even if he'd have to inject himself.
Although, probably because her life ended as a result of her work in Gutler, no one remembers her contributions to the search for the Nong-Ok. A flightless cursor owl found in the Seminine Isles. Its long legs permit the Nong-Ok to run faster than any other avian, perhaps any other animal, who knows? When it's not hunting its prey in this manner, the Ok hangs from tree branches, like a bat, waiting to dive on hapless prey below on the jungle floor. Mijanu liked extreme animals, you see. One of the few figures of the academic establishment I respect. Really a shame she disappeared. Oh, decades ago. In the 30s. I didn't know her personally, of course. The chasm of academic pretension still stood before us, even though she had unusual courage for someone from the other side. No offense, officer, but I'm not much of a pedagogue. I don't know what I would have. Me? I'm not a people person, unless you haven't noticed. By all means.
Hello, I'm Gary. Yellow Man. I mean, officer.
The lieutenant raises his eyebrow. Yellow Man. Interesting. This is something to ask him about.
I'm just waiting for my friend Morel to finish up with his insect traps so we can return to civilization. I like nature, just not this bloody coast. It's mostly drunks and degenerates that come here.
Degenerates? This man respects authority too much. To see the truth inscribed upon thine own visage. Pretend thou art a paragon of virtue.
I've been tempted on occasion, but someone has to stay strong for Revacol.
He pronounces Revacol with a hard K, unlike other people.
I like to pronounce it the hard way, the old way,
the stupid way. He winks at you, trying to relay some hidden message, inviting you to mispronounce it too, perhaps. It's odd. It's a secret rite, a very fringe nationalist handshake. probably.
My mug? Why would you think that? Oh, no, that's not... Why would I be calling to a broken mug? Okay, I admit it. I threw the mug away in the trash container behind the hostel. I know I shouldn't have, and I am very sorry, officer. You're not going to find me, are you? Oh, God. 250? How am I gonna pay that? Okay. I'll work harder. I'll pay it off. I promise.
This is a considerable expense to him. 1 month's wage, most likely.
And I'll never do it again. I don't know what got into me, really. Work has been stressful lately. Damn Koiko's price dumping us out of competition.
What did you do, Gary?
Nothing. Nothing.
Here we go. Start pumping that sweet info.
I know a guy who works with the trash collection services, CS Municipal. He gave me a master key for the trash containers of Martinez. So I can use the Whirling's trash compactor to store my own stuff. Garbage disposal is expensive as hell. The damn Hemians run it like a mob. I'm sorry, okay? I thought I could cut costs. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have disgraced myself.
Disgraced? No need for the histrionic, sir. It was, after all, just a trash container.
Officer, please. Let me explain. It's not like that. I was only cleaning up. I live right across the yard from where he was hanged, and I saw him stripped naked. All the clothes lying around in the yard, smelling. People are animals, you know? Then I came out to clean up the rags because no one else would. I put them into the Whirling's trash, along with a broken mug, admittedly. Okay. I was coming to throw the mug away, and, well, I threw the mug there and the clothes too.
Right. It was just civic duty.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. Civic duty. Armor? No. I mean, yes. Of course. I know he was wearing armor, but I don't know anything about it.
An infant could see he's not telling the truth, but he's too scared to admit more wrongdoing.
I hope I could help your investigation, in my small way.
Does this mean you were in his apartment, admiring his colonial mug collection? Perhaps it would be interesting to tell him.
I told you everything I know.
Uncomfortable shifting around doesn't make him the killer, though. It's something else.
No. I help Morell with research sometimes, and I've learned some things along the way. But I don't usually go in for picnics like this on my own.
After all this time with Morell, he must have an opinion on cryptids. This could lead to a good one.
Oh, yes, the burning rhino. Morell doubts he's real, but I don't much care, because I won't be the one looking for him out in Safra Serai. A rhinoceros that looks ordinary during the day, but burns brightly by night. Well, at least the males do. They have special ducts just above their shoulder blades that secrete a combustible fluid. When the rhino is just beginning to light itself, it looks...
But how is this combustible fluid lit?
The rhino starts running very fast to build heat, then stops, raises its head, and sparks fly from its neck, setting its back ablaze.
We don't really do that around.
Perhaps we should have more such decisive action in Revacol. You know, the flames are not just for decoration. They are. During the burning rhino's mating season, herds of male rhinos, all aflame, encircle herds of female rhinos, forming a fiery ring. Local peasants call it the Passion Ring. They fear the rhinos, as perhaps they should. Anyway.
The lieutenant sighs, without looking up from his notes. It's clear the burning rhino is dear to him on many levels, some even spiritual.
Sure do, officer. In my home. Yes. When I was going to... How did you know? Mr. Clare unlocked my apartment? So you work for Everard Clare? Officer, please tell him we're good. No, tell him I'll make it up. What have I done? He'll send the muscle after me. I was probably talking too loud in the whirling the other night about some theories. I won't do it again. If there's anything I can do to assist you, or the Union...
This scared him proper. He's positively melting from fear. Has to prop himself up with a lot of anger.
The weather vane has turned. He cannot be unturned.
He clearly liked his squirming. He may even have changed his mind about the whole door-opening operation.
Not many Sealites here, or anywhere.
Do you remember how, when we met Measurehead and I said the next races will be a really good one? Well, this is that racist.
Hey, man. All I meant was there are not many Sealites around here. I'm just stating a fact. No problem at all.
Sounds like some conspiracy topic. You might be able to discuss it with him when the lieutenant isn't here, if you can remember it. Your gut feeling tells you it'd be interesting.
Officers.
That shirt looks very uncomfortable on him. Look at the buttons, barely keeping that thing together, as if something is ready to rip out from underneath. Yes, like a piece of ceramic armor, for example. One that makes a clicking sound when the plates meet each other, resembling pearls or marbles. Stolen from the corpse in the yard near where he lives.
I knew you'd figure it out, officer. I'm sorry I didn't tell you at once. I was ashamed of what I did. And I didn't want you to know.
We're not detecting falsehood, sire. He's
Gary! What's going on?
Later, Morale. I've got...
No, you've got explaining to do.
Everyone was picking those pieces off him, and I was watching them do it. And they'd scattered his clothes all over the yard, so I went there to take out the trash and started cleaning up. All those rags on the ground, him swinging up there, and I had a lapse of honor, sir. I thought, he's a foreigner. They all say he wasn't from. Only the cuirass was left, so I stripped it off him. It was early in the morning. No one saw me. I took it with me. It was a mistake. Had I known it'd give you guys trouble,
We're detecting sincere contrition here, sire. He's not trying to flatter anyone.
It's okay. It was a loose end, and you are tying it up now.
I'm so fucking sorry I called you Yellow Man. Sealite officers commanded the suzerain's navy. Most of them sided with the king when...
They were thoroughly conservative men. It's difficult to say what the lieutenant thinks of this historic apology. His face does not belie emotions.
Because I was weak. I should have told you the moment I saw you.
The hell, Gary?
I'll explain later.
He sighs again, hangs his head, and unbuttons his shirt fully. A cuirass that matches the dead man's boots comes into view. Soon it is in your hands, smelling of his sweat.
I always thought it was the Union, but I sure as hell won't go around saying that anymore. You have my word. I don't...
This is all he knows.
Yes, absolutely. I will never do anything like this again. I won't mess with Mr. Clare either. You have my word.
Listen to it. trap in the reeds at your feet. Looks like the same one you saw Morel set before. The reeds shake sadly in the coastal breeze. Snow specks the stalks. Most of it melts quickly. The reeds seem to be waiting for something. The wind picks up here, near the cape's end, surrounding the narrow strip of land from 3 cardinal directions. It's cold for this time of year. Locusts are crawling around in the trap, confused but uneaten.
Big surprise. Anyway, 1 down, 3 to go. I meant no offense, just...
The reeds, the wind picks up here. An old door, worn by elements, guards the depot. The wind has blown a sand dune in front of it. The door hasn't been opened in a long while.
It's military, a service depot of some sort. The washerwoman mentioned a depot on the coast. She said it was for moving ammo and cargo across the bay. This
old door, worn by elements, guards the depot. The wind has blown a sand dune in front of it. The door hasn't been opened in a long while. You pick up the handset. There's a tone. The machine is operable. The lieutenant shrugs apathetically, then walks a little distance away to concentrate on his notes. Looks like he'd rather... Calling. 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 Still.
Stop calling me, man. I'll get you your money, alright? I just need till tonight. Let me work. Testis. Hey!
Disconnect.
Are we about done with this now?
The light vanishes inside the concrete slit. The structure goes deep under the earth. Maybe it's just a storm drain for the sewer.
No idea. We might find her down somewhere. There's an old storm drain system beneath Martinez that's mostly collapsed. Revachel's sewage system has been built and rebuilt 4 or 5 times now. In conclusion, she could be under any building. I hope not.
There's no echo and no answer. The remaining windows rattle from a strong gust of wind. They're covered in a thick layer of grime. They must have been like this for 40 years. Dripping water falls from a high place. All you can see is the shadow of a collapsing staircase. There's rust and corrosion on the bars. They're foaming with it. And a small layer of white salt from the sea.
No. I won't even try. You know, I had a partner once. They called him Eyes, because he had to show me things. It's that bad. Well enough, actually. It's odd how that works. I'm no sharpshooter, but I passed my shooting courses.
And Mikhail noticed the windows, especially with how there are no windows on the south side. This was to deal with. You officers, come to investigate the historic subtext of West Martinez? I'm Tran Hailostam. You must be Kim Kituragi, right? I was just telling my son about this building. Not a lot of people realize the historic significance here. Very rich in hypertext.
Nice to meet you.
Oh yes, so Mikhail. They had to deal with monitor glare, especially in the summer. They still had vector monitors back then. That was 49 years ago. So they didn't have windows on the south wall. Yes, hypertext, young carp, and the collection of cultural hyperlinks. No, I can't say that we've met before, but I've heard of Kim, of course. Mikhail, say hi to the officers. Mikhail's a little tired today. We spent all night trying to run Orbis on his radio computer. Have you heard of it? It's a programming language used in Grad. Quite tricky, but he wanted to play this Grad-made adventure program. We've been getting really into verbs lately.
The man speaks in the artificial cadence of a professor, or someone who's been on too many radios.
But I assume you're not here for giant worms when there are so many real things to see.
This man is your half-brother. You feel it. But why? Well, get a load of this guy. He really enjoys his trivia. The Orbis programming language was named after its inventor. Victor Orbis, a cybernetician from Grad. They run Vox in the Occidental countries.
No, I'm afraid I can't help you with this one, officer. It's just a regular day off for me and Mikhail here.
So you haven't seen any...
No, I'm sorry. As I said, this is just a day off. We just arrived anyway.
He's telling the truth. He hasn't seen anyone.
Aha! But it's not just any empty old building. What not a lot of people know is, this used to be the R&D department of Felt Electrical. And Felt, which now sells ink cartridges mostly, was once a top dog in the turn-of-the-century cybernetics boom.
It looks old and weathered, with seagulls picking apart its stone and metal carcass.
That's not surprising. Only a vestigial ink cartridge and ferrotape manufacturer remains. They started out as a midway electronics outfit in Königstein 2 centuries ago. After an aggressive move to Revachol, Feld became a global player in the emerging personal electronics market of the pre-revolutionary era. Still, Tricentennial was beating them in business machines. But Feld had an ace up their sleeve. Or should I say, they were developing an ace up their sleeve? I'm mixing my metaphors here. It was here in Martinez, possibly in this very building, that they developed prototypes for a tape computer. An elegant folding mechanism of rollers and ferrotape ribbons, portable enough to be a take-it-home solution, revolutionizing business machines, possibly even bring them to the average consumer, which is a feat of engineering even today's giants, Rehm, ICN and ZAM, haven't achieved yet. Indeed.
The revolution!
Unfortunately, their moonshot project never made it to the market. Feld's move to Revachol backfired. The revolutionary government liquefied their assets and expropriated those very advanced prototypes, possibly from this very building, or one of the adjacent ruins. All of this was built by Feld, even the boardwalk. Wild Pines built Martinez proper as a resort for their middle management. Feld built this side of town for R&D. Yes, they even built a pleasure wheel, but that got destroyed in the war.
A pleasure wheel?
Yes, to lure in their star engineers. This part of Martinez was nothing but reeds before Feld arrived. They had to make the prospect of living here attractive. It was supposed to become a global center for innovation in cybernetics. But history had other plans. Oh, I'm afraid it didn't end well for the boys. But this story is a bit too dark for little Mikhail.
Wait, is he saying that we should just bypass the excesses of the revolution?
Officer, I told you this chapter of history wasn't...
The boy looks first at you, then back at his father, confused.
They used them for military communications, but also to write and send out press releases, the most notorious example being Le Décret de Mars. What's the Mars Decree? I mean the radio transmission sent out to news agencies and world governments by the newly created Commune of Revachol on the 7th...
A short-lived legislative foundation for a short-lived utopia.
It's a beautiful piece of text, actually. A singer-songwriter I know, Charette, called it a love poem to Revachol on her political concept album, Bon Baiser dans le Lind. You should read it. Every local library in Revachol stocks a copy of the decree. I tried to get Mikhail to memorize it. Tried to. Someone was much too interested in worms to be paying any attention. Actually, no one knows. No one even knows what a computer made entirely of tape would look like. But word has it, they were very elegant, exquisite, alien-looking turn-of-the-century hardware.
Buckle up.
10 years ago, I did a little freelancing, I guess you could say. I was a special consultant for an exhibition at the Wompty Dumpty Dum Center in Vredefort, Oranje. It raised the same questions, and we had lengthy discussions with Paul Ockerman, who was head curator at the time. This was before the twins Keith and Guy Juice joined the team, trying to...
He did it. He said, Wumpty Dumpty Dom Center, like it's the most natural thing in the world. What the hell is a Wumpty Dumpty Dom Center? And who the hell are Keith and Guy Juiced?
The Wumpty Dumpty Dom Center for Contemporary Art. The exhibition itself drew on Lagerman's notion of memory, and so there were some parallels. That's why the head curator, Paul Ockerman, chose to... In fact, I'm not. The Wumpty Dumpty Dom Center is a place you can visit if you're ever in Vredefort and are ever in the market for an exhibition space / contemporary art research center. But perhaps I should return to the tape computers. As I was saying, the device itself was very elegant, fragile even. One could write directly on the tape using a special chemical solution. The machine would then analyze the handwriting, perform operations, and project output onto white...
Made of black film and folding tape structures.
Very, very cool. Though I understand the socio-economic causes of the revolution, it pains me to imagine the revolutionaries setting fire to this precious device. But so they did. The felt playback experiment vanished into the fires of '07. Yes, the official name of the prototype. Some sources report it as the felt playback experience. Who knows? Maybe it was an accident, or maybe they didn't want the technology to end up in the wrong hands. Either way, they're all gone now. All 3 versions of the prototype. Nothing but debris and ashes remain inside that building. But of course, what else? I do have some money, yes, but that's not what's really important here.
He's not gonna give you money. What are you doing? Clearly you were just profiling. No, I mean, come on. You need the money. If it's not a thing, he can give you some.
Oh no, I don't have it on me. I'm just spending time with my kid here, showing him...
Not that he would have to worry about being robbed. He looks surprisingly buff. Does he work out?
I do some Lomantang stick fighting now and then.
Lo Mantang stick fighting is a form of martial arts originating from the island of Lo Mantang.
Actually, a great many cultures have their own version of stick fighting, such as the sacred Mabolo tradition of the Harley. The name deriving from the butterfruit tree traditionally used for crafting the long, slender sticks, whereas the sticks used in other cultures.
You doze off as he paints you a comprehensive picture of the history of... Man, he's good at speaking.
But anyway, I'm boring you with details again. You were saying? Lomantang stick fighting is a little like a Berolidin addiction. I've been practicing it for nearly 20 years now, so you could say that my doses have grown a little...
Wait, what does this man know about Pyrrolidon addiction?
You got me, Detective. But my history should hardly come as a surprise.
Here's a former junkie. I can recognize one when I see it.
Dad's fighting with sticks every night after dinner for 4 hours. He has a special room for that, and a special
That's right, Mikhail. It also has a meditative quality. Helps to clear my head. But anyway. No, thanks to you for having me and little Mikhail here to pick your brain. A very interesting conversation.
Pick your brain? If anything, this was rather one. You see, a once bright mural tower. Above the mural, a collapsed roof, broken windows set in walls that are felled electrical. How ironic. All these dark rooms. Feld Electrical. You only know them as a small company that makes ink cartridges. There's something in the wind. Sometimes the only way to go forward.
In there? She could. Or she could be in the identical room over there, or in that boat shack. In that church tower, maybe.
Why single out this one building? The once bright mural towers above you, saying, Feld Electrical, R&D. Suddenly, all is quiet. There is no cold hand brush. Trying to talk to the wind. Is trying to talk to the city something you've done before? Is it in your secret room?
How do we? She's probably north of the... And then there's the church. If I were a murder suspect...
Or spiritual? She could be looking for refuge.
Anyway, we do it the old-fashioned way, sector by sector. Go. Then, if we're desperate, we can look where we can't enter. Bunkers, storm drainage, this place. I'm sure it won't come to that.
Walk the coast, the old boardwalk, the reeds. You can always come back here and talk to the wind again. Look where it already... Buckle up and raise your collar. This search is going to be wet